Hello legends and super legends, welcome to Veloharmony. Today is a mild day again, and it's been raining all night. It's supposed to rain most of the day. We got like a 70% chance of rain. I went outside, kind of checked out the weather. It's one of those days where it's at 15 C right now. It's supposed to get up to like maybe 18 C, if that, just barely. So it's a tight temperature range. It's wet, it's damp. So I decided to just cover my knees. It's a little warmer than last week, and I didn't want to wear full tights. So it's one of those days where you're splitting hairs. And I'm not a big advocate of knee warmers unless you're going to be riding hard. So today is long. So yeah, it will be a good solid ride. So I decided the knee warmers would work. Paul and I both are going to wear our Pro Team. Paul also got one of these, the Pro Team thermal jersey. I've got my rain jacket in here. I'm all packed up. I'm just going to put on my rain covers and get out of here. It's one of those days where I'm concerned about the removal because technically you're supposed to only use it in rain up to 10 minutes. So we're going to have to find a way to protect it. So I've got my rain jacket. If anything, I'll just put it in my pocket if it's raining very heavily so that it doesn't get exposed to too much rain. But we should be able to get some shots for you guys. And I hope you get a chance to get out and get your miles in. I'm going to go ahead and get ready. The boys are getting ready. We're at the lot. We're headed out.
This comes out. Okay.
The cap is loose. Yeah, just glue it. Yeah. I never had that problem with mine. I know you had that on yours.
Yeah, I never had it on the other one like Frankie, but the silver one, it came out, remember?
Yeah. I'm going to just set this once. You guys ready? Yeah, Frankie's having trouble with his pump. The cover is loose. I was just asking him what they take for flats. He said he's got CO2.
These guys are passing me at the same location Alan passed me last weekend.
Oh, right there under the bridge?
Under the bridge.
Yeah, Paul said when he was on the way to the ride, these guys passed him in their vehicle. They're getting ready, but it's actually raining right now. I'm ready to go. You know, I don't want to stand out here and get rained on. So shortly after this, I start rolling around, get the removal activated because the rain is heavy. You can see it.
Drink a beer, man. That stuff is a diuretic. It gets rid of all your water in your body.
And Frankie said he was drinking beer last night. I was telling him that's tough. I'll drink beer, but not the night before a ride. You know, I need my water.
Like it. Yeah, this hat. That's why I'm getting two more. This hat.
And Paul likes the blue
rain
helmet.
Doesn't even sit on it. That's what I was telling you. So a day like this is perfect.
I brought these little ones to see how they do. Okay. I got extra pair this time.
So right about here, I decided just get on my bike, start rolling. I'm ready to get out of here. sitting around getting rained on. So I'll go ahead and try to set up the...
I'm just gonna roll over there and set this thing so we can go.
Yeah, it's synced.
We'll roll this way.
I've got the sync going, so I'm ready to roll. So I turn around here, I think right about here. Yeah, I turn around, and I'm not sure what they're doing, but I'm ready to go. It's raining actively. I see Paul's ready because he rode here. Jose's ready. I've got this thing synced, and so I just want to keep moving right now. So I think I ride down to the corner and do a U-turn. I turn here because I want to get this removal out of the rain. It's raining, and I want to just...
I'll just pick up the start, and then we'll turn it off till the rain stops. I don't want it getting too much rain on it. They said 10 minutes.
So they said that the removal should not be exposed to more than 10 minutes of rain, I guess, overall. But it's not driving rain per se, but it's just constant light rain. So I decided to just do the beginning filming here and stow it away till we get out there, depending on what the weather was doing. But it's actively raining now, so I'm just moving to keep moving, so I'm not standing and having it rain on me. I'm not sure what's going on, but I saw Jose was ready, Paul's ready. We're waiting on Frankie and Hugo. So I think I rode over here, did a U-turn. So a lot of group rides you go to, they leave on time, they're prompt. So especially if you don't know the people, you make sure you get there early, or you will be riding alone, because a lot of the group, they just take off on time.
Let's go, man. Where?
I think I'm telling Paul, let's go. I don't know what they're doing, but you know, it's not the day to loiter. It's raining.
Let's go. Get around here, get wet while we're standing. Let's go. Get some miles in.
I come to ride, not sit around the parking lot. Let's do this. Yep, so they're coming. We're rolling. Here we go. It's actively raining.
Raining on us, boys. I'm going to turn this thing off shortly so we can save the removal. Not supposed to be exposed to more than 10 minutes of rain. Hey, Paul, here. I brought this for you.
Yeah, I brought some extra banana bread for Paul.
Yeah, Paul. Drift back. Go. Here. If I'm gonna be wet, I want to be moving. That's nonsense. Sitting in the parking lot getting wet. What the hell is that? Get that. All right, boys. So I'll turn the removal off until the rain abates. Well, trying to put the gimbal back on. The rain has abated. The camera can stand the rain. It's the gimbal I'm worried about. Yeah, that's fine. That's a light. That's light rain. All right, guys. Let's go to the middle.
Yeah, we sat.
Make our way after these guys.
We sat through several cycles of this light, and it just would not change for us because there were no cars behind us. And there's no button to push, so we're gonna get across. And nothing's coming to get through here.
All right. Oh, the jersey feels better without that rain jacket on. I can feel the breathability.
I was getting hot when I had the rain jacket on because I did not zip the rain jacket down. I zipped all the way up. And it just doesn't breathe as well.
Yeah, my thing is I try to tell them 4 to 5 hours.
As It's a Bactimo rain.
Yeah.
So we're past the Flint Ridge Hills at this point, and when we went through the hills, Jose picked up the pace. We just sat on it, just like he had done last week. But this week, I just stayed with him just to see. And so he likes to surge off the front. So we just sat there. So I decided that when we get to Ridge Lake Shores, I would introduce him to the climbs out there because they're longer and more interesting. So right now we're just kind of rolling here. I stayed back to stay out of the spray, and that's the same thing Paul's doing.
Yeah.
Because if you don't, you get dirty, you get stuff in your eyes. I tried wearing my glasses even though they're clear, and the rain was just on it. You might as well need wipers, you know, for them. So I just stuck them on the back of my head. So I stayed back, following these guys closer. When I do get close, I'm off to one side. But it was raining so much today that it didn't matter. The spray was being blown all over, raining and windy.
Who did that? Who was doing that?
I'm not the baby though.
Oh. Frankie.
That road going that way?
Yeah.
1488, I go that way too.
Oh, okay.
All the way to 45? Yeah.
I used to use that road a long time ago with that.
Taking a slightly different route today. We're headed north on a road called Highway 242 in the Woodlands, going towards FM 1488, and then we're gonna go west on FM 1488 to Egypt Lane and avoid the little bumpy part of Egypt Lane that's all chewed up. So it's a much smoother and cleaner way. It's got a nice wide shoulder, and it's a heavily traveled road by cyclists. We actually saw a few more cyclists today than the other time out, but still nothing near where you see on a dry day, of course. So I'm just hanging behind there. I think I'm behind Paul. Paul's here with the camera, just staying out of the spray of these guys. Because there was so much rain this morning, you could see the water pooling on the road. The spray lifts and then it gets blown by the wind. So the range of the spray is more. Even our mudguards had specks of water coming from the sides, depending on where we were riding, because there was just so much water when it was raining. Not nearly as bad as being out. Still kept us clean. And we'll show the difference later in the ride. I had Paul do a shot to where I'll use that to show you the difference. These guys were really dirty, and we look like we have been riding dry. Because several things that
we're gonna make a left turn.
Paul's telling them that we're going to turn left. There's an intersection 1488 coming up.
I think the next one is, yeah, the very last one.
But none of them have any shoe covers. And
You know you never heard that.
basically what happens, your feet get wet and it's squishy, your socks get wet, and you might as well be riding in a pool of water. So yeah, the shoe covers won't keep 100% of the stuff out. My feet were just a little damp. So those Dexter shoe covers from Endura did their job.
Yeah, that's it. I know.
We get to this intersection here, and Frankie's familiar with the area. I don't know what he's doing here. These two lanes go left. We're all in the right lane here. He's sitting in the left lane, so we're supposed to use both lanes. I tell him to get in the right lane. He's like, I thought we're going left.
We're gonna turn. We're turning out there. turning harder. Yeah. Because these guys are.
So I told him, I said, I thought you said this is your neighborhood. Because this is where he used to ride at night.
The inner lane.
This TT country.
There are 2 left turn lanes, so you got to leave one for cars.
That's 45. Taking it. Let's go.
So we're taking this highway. It has a nice wide shoulder. This is 1488. It's a big bike route, and it has a nice wide shoulder. So we're gonna take it down to Egypt Lane.
Look at Jose. Turn around, go with him, man.
You can see the spray. You see the water inside. It's been raining. I took off my rain jacket because the rain finally stopped. But just look, you can see the water flicking. As the cars go by, we're getting sprayed from nothing. Today's ride is going to be a little under 5 hours, say 4.5 hours, 4 hours plus. So when you're riding like that, you have to really make sure you use your energy correctly. You don't waste it. Knowing what's coming up right here, Hugo takes off, picks up the pace. I just let him go. Because I don't really want to sit on this wheel anyway because of all the spray. Anyway, so I just hold my pace. I can do this all day long. So we're just rolling here. And then shortly, in a little while, Jose would take off and go after him. And I think I get on Jose's wheel just to the side. I stay over to the right. It's important to note when you ride in a group, only do things that you can maintain and only do things that you know won't cause you to get dropped later. Because we're going to see a lot of that on this ride here, where people waste energy and then they get dropped. Then the group's got to slow down and wait for you. So what we did on some parts of the ride, we just did not wait. We just kept going. So they got to ride alone based on the decisions that they had made, and I will point that out. Because after a while, it gets old for the group to keep slowing down for you because you want to expend energy, and then 2 seconds later, you get dropped when the group keeps its pace. So we just, we don't want to be stopping. We're here to ride. That's the whole point of a group ride. So you roll together and you keep your speed up. So right here, I'm staying to the right. You can see the rain flickering to the, you see that all the flicks right there. It's raining. Yeah, it's picking up. The rain's picking up, and then the wind's blowing it. So I'm just staying to the right. There's no spray on this side. Paul's behind me here. You see the rain. I ended up taking off my hat because at this temperature, 12C, the hat was causing me to heat up. So I put it in my pocket. So right here, Jose is spinning like he's sprinting. And I'm just holding, I got 92, 93 RPM. I'm in a good sized gear, just holding a steady speed. And what I had observed was both he and Hugo, every time they go to the front, they act like they're sprinting to the finish line. Well, the problem with that is when somebody goes harder, you better have something left. So I told Paul, just don't waste your energy. Hugo is right up there. He didn't go anywhere. And I told Paul, just back off because we're not going to follow that closely because of the spray. And so there's no point in wasting your energy. So when you're riding in a group, resist the urge to surge off the front and then get dropped, because everybody looks at you like you're not thinking, because you could have used that energy to stick. And all you're doing is making the group slow down for you and causing everybody else to slow down. And all you had to do was sit in the pace line and stay within your limits. So right here, I'm behind Paul. I'm on his side, actually. You can see Frankie's back there. He's probably on his bars. I look back just to check. Guys start to ride on the shoulder here, and this is a turn lane, and I told Paul, don't ride over there, get in the lane. And he moved back over. You don't want to ride on a shoulder there if you're going straight, because the shoulder ends and then this becomes a shoulder. What they did is they used the shoulder for that turn lane. You stay in the turn lane. You don't want a car to come and turn in front of you. So whenever you see a turn lane, a part of the shoulder that has become a turn lane, ride in the turn lane next to the white line like you normally do, so that anybody turning would have to get behind you. Don't ride to the right of the turn lane, because then you're inviting problems. So we're just staying back far enough to stay out of the spray. I mean, we get close and we end up hitting the brakes. You know, Paul ends up hitting the brakes here because he got too close, and then water and dirt gets in your face. You can see how close he got. I guess he was rolling. That's what I was talking about. They took off of the front, and all of a sudden their speed just kept going down. And we can ride like this all day. So we rolled up on it. Paul ended up hitting the brakes because the spray. So he had to back off. See the water on the right? I'm trying to skirt around it there. And I'm staying to the right. I'm backing off because of that spray. And I paid about $35 for my mudguards on sale. It's the best $35 I've spent in cycling in a very long time. I'm telling Paul to back off because of the spray. Because it's really. So right here, Frankie takes off, and Jose chases him. And Paul and I just observing, because they're expending all that energy and going nowhere. Just watch. So Jose reaches Frankie and he sits right next to him. And they're right up there. Powers on.
Amazing what one can do with a burst of energy.
So that's what Paul said. Amazing what one can do with a burst of energy. But the thing is, it's energy misplaced. you know, you're using the energy and you're doing. It's like driving your car and going 100 miles an hour from stop sign to stop sign. You're still gonna get where you're going at the same time, but you're gonna wear out your brakes. You're gonna burn more gas. So, you know, so I just shook my head and I just watched it. It's like, okay. So the reason I mentioned that is, it's gonna come to play later in the ride. You're gonna see what happens when you've used up energy and it's time to pay what they call pay the tax. That's what they call it in cycling. You got to pay that tax back because the human body has a finite amount of energy. So if you don't know your limitations or your fitness level, your capabilities, and you do stuff like this, there's a price to pay. So just make a note of that. We'll point it out later. But we just gotta smile. We're sitting right out of the spray. And so we turn here. I think this is Egypt. Yeah. I come and I check for a car. There's a car coming. Yeah. So we avoided the bumpy part of Egypt lane that we usually take by using this highway.
And it's a way to go.
Yeah, exactly. Back there near that golf course,
So we're talking about Frankie. Frankie is not afraid of a wet road. He was doing all kinds of stuff. I told him, I said, man, be careful before you fall out here. He was imitating Peter Sagan, according to him. He was sitting up, hands free, and then putting his hand up in a victory salute. And it's rainy on smooth asphalt. I told him, I said, man, if you hit this pavement, it won't be funny. So, you know, he was having fun. That's what we're talking about. I don't mess around with the road. I don't like to fall. I love riding my bike, and I do all I can to avoid falling. That's the whole point. Why increase the chance? So, I read the road, I look at pavement, I'm always aware of the surface and how they pave, because they're all different. And you guys will see that later. One of our members of this group crashes on this ride, you know, when we get to Ridge Lake Shores. That's the reason I decided to title this ride Slippery When Wet. So we're rolling through this neighborhood here. We're going to turn left down the road there. We're just staying out of the spray. The camera makes them seem a little further, but they're no more than 2 car lengths ahead. We just stay back far enough to stay out of the spray. Yeah. Frankie's asking whether we're turning left. Paul confirms it. We're going to turn left and go to Honia Egypt Road. The piece of it that hits Fish Creek. It's kind of odd. They use the same names.
Yeah. You gotta respect the road.
That's what we're talking about. You gotta respect the road. Yeah. I love riding in the wet. What I notice in the wet, the drivers give you more room. There are fewer cars on the road. A lot of people don't want to go out. That's what, you know, we noticed that this day as well. In all the neighborhoods, everybody's home. People curl up, sleep in. I mean, it is early in the morning. You know, 9 o'clock on Saturday, most people sleep in anyway. So it was nice. The temperature was mild. Beautiful day. I love cloudy days. So we turn right here on this highway. This will take us down to Fish Creek into Ridge Lake Shores.
Right.
You see the water sitting on the pavement.
You crazy.
So the other thing I'm going to say is that you try not to pull too long and then get dropped. That's another thing that will develop and unfold here that I will point out. These are tips that you can take with you. If you choose to pull, make sure you know how long you can handle that effort. Plus, you don't want to get anywhere near your limit. If you can handle the effort for 5 minutes, pull for 1 minute and go back in the draft. And take those 1 minute intervals and spread it out throughout the ride. Each time you get a chance to pull for 1 minute. You don't have to match anybody's time. And the reason I'm saying that is, it's better for you to have something in the tank if the speed of the group changes, so you're not off the bat. Keep that in mind. I will point that out as it develops here. So right here, I'm making sure we get through this light. We're going into the wind. And what I'm making sure we do is stay back enough to where we don't have to spray. We're probably about, I would say, 3 car lengths or so behind these guys. And I noticed right here that Frankie, since he did that acceleration back on that highway, he's just sitting at the front. And my concern is, you see the spray off of my mudguards. There's so much water on the road that as a spray. Paul moved over to the side. So even the mudguards, when there's so much water, there's a bit of a splatter. Not as bad as if you don't have it. So I must have gone through some water there. But anyway, what I was saying is that this whole stretch, you don't have enough room to be changing who's at the front. And Frankie ends up pulling those guys this entire stretch, which is probably about 3 to 5 miles. I would say probably 7 kilometers. I'm guessing 7 kilometers. It is a good stretch. The problem with that is what I was talking about earlier is he shouldn't have sat up there that whole time, because right after his pull, he was off the back. Every time you're off the back, if you're with a group that doesn't care, they'll just ride away from you, and you're doing the rest of the ride alone. But you know, our group would try to make sure everybody gets in together. So then it just ends up slowing us down. So he shouldn't have been at the front that long. He should have sat behind somebody or gotten off the front earlier, let somebody else take a pull so that you can stay with the group. The good thing was we ended up, since we turned into Ridge Lake Shores with the construction and the gravel, we slowed down enough to where he could catch back up. You're not always going to get that chance. There are groups out there you ride with, you do something like that, they will put the hammer down and keep it down. And you will not see them again for the rest of that ride. So, you know, so you know, you got to keep that. And this is for everybody. If you're riding with the group, there's nobody you're impressing if you sit at the front longer than you're capable of. The whole point is you want to finish with the group, if that's a goal. If you're just getting into it, your first goal should be, let me finish with this group. So you do whatever you can to stay with the group, to finish with the group. In fact, if there's a question, you don't even take a pull. Just sit in. If the pace is conducive for you to just sit in and say, yeah, I'm working back here. That's what you do, because that's how you'll improve. Getting dropped does not help you improve. Getting dropped says you got to do more work. Now, it's not just physical work, it's mental work. Head and legs. You can't just ride, you have to use your head to be aware of what's going on. So all we're doing here is we're rolling, and we're rolling at a good clip. And I'm just keeping them within 2 car lengths or so in front of us. After this downhill, we end up getting too close, and I got water and spray on me, so I backed off. I literally had to hit my brakes. They had sanded this bridge. You can see the sand to the right. I'm letting Paul know there's a piece of wood, like a 2x4 there. You don't want to hit that. It's not conducive for our wheels. Those are the kind of things that you really want to point out. That can cause somebody damage a wheel or a worse fall. Probably in a 17 or something like that, just turning it. It's not very hard. We're going downhill. It's leveling off here, so you can begin to feel it now. And they begin to slow down. I don't slow down. And you can see Frankie's still at the front. So even though he's slowing down, nobody goes around him to help with the pull. And that's another thing I'm going to point out. If you're riding in a group, it's not good group etiquette to just sit in all day and then surge off the front. You need to help the group. So if you don't help the group, nobody else is going to pull you. You don't want to pull, nobody will pull. Because it doesn't make sense for anybody to pull you for 30 miles so you can sprint up a hill. What is that all about? So keep that in mind when you're with the group. If you want to attack, that's fine, but you need to take your pull. Because you go to a race, nobody's gonna pull you to the finish line. You better be able to work. If you can't taste the win, you will be dropped long before they get to the finish line. Because to make a breakaway, you gotta work. Ain't nobody pulling you into a breakaway. It's an attack. You see those guys going zigzag across the road. They don't give you a wheel. You got to work to get in there. So if you're not used to working and all you do is sit in and then surge when somebody's finished pulling, you will be a one-dimensional weak rider. So keep that in mind. You got to be able to work. That's the reason I don't mind sitting off the back working or sitting at the front working for a long time, because that's what made me more versatile when I used to compete. You have to be able to time trial, sprint, climb to be a factor in most races, if that's what you're into, or even most rides. So right here, I'm not sure if I think Frankie is still up there. He just stayed up there way too long because they're going slower and slower. That's why we're catching up. We're not going faster. We're doing 25 kilometers an hour, and he finally pulled off. Now watch. He stayed there too long. So now we come by, and he has nothing in the tank to stay with the group. You see the gap already opening. I mean, look at the guys he was with. So I don't get that. You don't sit up to the front, pull that long, and then as soon as you pull off, you get dropped. So if we had kept the pressure on, he'd be riding alone for a long time. So this was the first example of the tax. He stayed up there too long, so when he pulled off, he was tired. He had nothing left. You got to pull off, making sure you got something to get back in the draft. So the road here is drier, so I decided to ride up to these guys. I'm pointing out these tips because these are the tips that help new people learning how to draft, learning how to save your energy. That's what helps you improve quickly. You don't improve by getting dropped. You improve by hanging in with that group and getting the fitness benefits of finishing the ride and getting the kilometers in your legs. So you guys can see here, we're just rolling up to them. Since the road is dry, it's drier here, so I decided I'm going to roll closer, and I just go ahead and close the gap. So we're staying within ourselves so we can increase our pace at any time. Look at the distance to Frankie. Just got you pulling way back there. That's what I'm talking about. He's paying a tax. There was no reason why. There's three. He was riding with two other guys. He shouldn't have sat up there that long. So the guys he was riding with are way up here. He's way back there. What was that all about? Head and legs. You got to ride with your head. So I'm sitting a little to the left here just to stay out of the spray. So right here now, Jose takes off and he surges. And you can see the gap to Hugo got dropped right there. So I just rolled up to him and told him, I said, you might want to keep it steady because you just dropped your buddy who's been pulling. So when you're riding in a group, resist the urge to change the speed drastically after someone has been pulling for a long time. Because what ends up happening is that person may not be encouraged to pull again. I know I wouldn't. Everybody has different limits. I mean, I can sit at the front and pull at a certain pace and still have enough left to go with a change in speed. Because like I said, I have the experience, I use my head, I stay within my limits. But other people may be pulling at a point where they may need to sit at that same speed when they get back in the draft. So if you plan on helping the group, because there's a difference between riding with the group and there's a difference between launching an attack. So if your plan is to launch an attack and you launch an attack, that's different. That's not pulling. So if you launch an attack and you go, the group doesn't have to follow you. The group can stay, whoever is behind you can stay at the group pace so that that person that pulled off can go back. You can see Hugo back there got dropped when Jose increased the pace after he'd been pulling. So that's what I'm trying to point out here. So if you're pulling, maintain the same speed the group was going. If you're going to attack, just attack. Because then the rest of the people will maintain that speed, so the people who are pulling will just be able to get behind and hold. And that keeps the group together. And that's what we mean by riding with the group. If you came to ride with the group, then you got to pay attention to what the group is doing. Because once you launch an attack, you're changing the dynamic of the group, and then the group can decide if they want to play or just let you ride off the front. So right around here, Paul starts having problems with gimbal. The gimbal kind of quit on him. You can see the pictures are all over the place. And he's trying to recover it. And he's not successful. Sometimes when the calibration is exceeded, you can see the camera just went limp. The gimbal basically is not functioning. At first I thought maybe the rain would have a factor, but
I lost control on this steer.
so he rides up to me, he tells me I've grabbed it, and the first thing I was checking to see if there was a lot of water in the motor, but it's just little specks of rain, so I figured it's not the rain. So I just reset everything, and I'm just hands-free riding right now as I do this. And I get it to work. I was like, great. So at least it's not the rain. So, but at that point, there's a bit of a gap to the boys, so I just decided I'm going to ride up at a leisurely pace because we've got to go past the construction barrels, and we're coming up the Ridge Lake shores up there. And I believe that Paul told them what was going on, and I think they turned off a bit of the power. They're probably just soft pedaling up there because I got back fairly easily without going too hard. So you can see this allowed Frankie to close the gap. So I clean the lens, make sure everything's ready, and then I start to roll up to those guys. We're going into the wind and it's a grade, so 28 to 32 kilometers an hour is a reasonable, fairly moderate pace in these conditions. And you can see I'm already getting closer, so I just picked it up a little bit because once we get into Ridge Lake shores, we've got several nice climbs in there. And that's the way you have to pace yourself. You have to know what's coming instead of going crazy. I could have blasted to catch these guys and just killed myself, but I decided to just up the pace just a little bit. We're going uphill here. Not sure why it's not registering, but this is at least a 2%. This is Ridge Lake Shores. It shows 1%. I thought it was more than that. I could have sworn the head unit showed more than that. It doesn't feel like a 1%. It's short, but it's steep. So Paul's waiting for me because he knows that I was working on the camera. I was able to do all of that without stopping. You know, that's why it's good to know how to do hands-free riding. I just sat up, reset everything so the calibration's back in. That's why he's hanging back. There was a lot of road spray on the lens, so I cleaned it back there.
Okay, this part right here. Yeah.
You know, when you're riding, sometimes you just forget. You get that camera, you put it on the hoods, and you go. I put my arm out. There's a car behind us, and I let them know we're going to take this lane. The Infinity truck is sitting over there. Xfinity cable company. So we decide we're gonna roll up to those guys, and here comes Frankie. So now he's been off the back, and what does he do? He comes down. He's expending even more energy, and he doesn't know where to turn. So he ends up going straight when he's supposed to turn left. Because even though he's been here, you know, you have to familiarize yourself with this place. So he goes straight. Paul says I'm crazy, but I think Frankie is crazier than I am. By the time we realized he was going straight, that's what you heard us calling out to Jose, because he was the closest to the turn. Because when Frankie went by, we thought he knew where he was going. I mean, he's been here a few times, but sometimes it's hard to remember this place. I had to basically study it on a map. So Jose made the turn, And I told him that he ends up asking me whether this was the video this is the place that we made the video with Paul, the seated climbing. I told him. Yeah. This climb goes to like 6.4% on the head unit at least. See how this thing picks it up. Right about here, it really starts to dig in. That's what he's asking me, whether this was the climb that I made that video on, the seated climb. I told him, yeah. I'm letting him know that after we finish here, we're going to Ribbon Chapel Road. I told Paul over here, just keep it steady. Crest the hill, and I think we're still got a bit of a gap on Frankie in there, but we turn off the power here.
I don't know how many times I have to say it.
Yeah, at this point we're just kind of rolling around, waiting for Frankie and them to catch up. We in a little bit we're running to a herd of deer. It's just I haven't seen that many. It was at least 10 to 12 of them. The camera really didn't do it justice, you know, with all the water spots that I see on there. But you know, there were so many of them coming across the street. Even after the herd, when the herd saw us, they broke up, and they were just all over crossing the road. So it's pretty interesting. Right across this intersection, this guy's just sitting at the intersection, just sitting there.
The place to sit there and meditate. All that crap at home.
Watch out those yeah.
That's the deer. There's a bunch of them. Can't really see them very well, and they scatter. Jose's reaching for his phone. I'm like, they're not gonna pose for you.
Look at them.
I can send you the clip, my brother. I'll send you the clip.
The clip's not very good.
Look at
this is
one coming.
Yeah, there you go. That's another one. I mean, they just kept. They were going back and forth. They were just.
Here it comes.
That's another one.
Watch out, watch out.
Yeah, we just saw so many of them. And then down in the cul-de-sac we saw more.
Yeah.
I don't know if the camera will really pick it up very well. That's another one crossing. There's about 12 of them and they just broke apart.
See how many were there, man? Oh man.
I will send you that clip. I'll just cut that section and I can just send it to you in a text.
I told Jose I would just send him
they weren't
a
going to
piece
stop
of
and
clip.
close for you, my man.
It didn't come out too well.
Jose was trying to pull out his phone.
Jose wanted to take a picture. I thought they're not going to pose for you.
Man, you're not going to catch me. They're not Disney characters.
And right down in this cul-de-sac, Hugo says he wants to take off his jacket because it's hot.
I gotta take off my sweater, man.
Okay, let's stop in this corner here.
So he wanted to take it off, so I told him we'd stop in this cul-de-sac for him to do that.
Make sure you get that ticket, Frankie. Okay, sir. But we got a long day. Because you wasted all that energy chasing deer.
I'm messing with Frankie. I said he wasted energy chasing deer.
The dog was barking out and they took off. Two of them. That dog scared me, man. Oh, man. This glove is cool because they put something on the tip. I can use my computer with it on. Yeah. Because they mentioned that, but you know, everything Rafa the right stuff, and you're like, I don't know. They're just trying to sell the stuff. And you get it in. It's right on the tip.
Yeah, the gloves have something on the tip. You can use them. You can use your computer, your phone, without taking the gloves off. They mentioned that, but I thought it's just marketing speak. But it actually worked. And those gloves were wet because it got rained on. They're not rain proof. They're just to keep your hands warm. They did a pretty good job. I just wanted to try them out. So Hugo took off his jacket. That's why we stopped. So everybody's kind of fueling up. There's a bunch of deer again. So they just ran and they stood in the corner by that house. And they stood so still that they looked like statues.
Look how still they are. Almost like yeah, sometimes it's like you think it's like a statue. Shut up, Frankie. Frankie, what happened, man?
Frankie's wringing his gloves and it's like the water is coming out like he's washing
Frankie,
something.
It looks like you were washing your truck.
Let me washboard
That's
in
what
the basement.
Frankie. Frankie ended up taking off his socks. His shoes were all wet.
With this spray, yeah, I got that. There was a guy told
Yeah,
me
the
something
cars
about
were spraying
box
us
spray.
unintentionally as they went by. There was so much rain. At this point, there's no rain right now. So anyway.
Yeah. Let me put some banana bread in my. Oh, sure. Let me get my.
It's time to go. Time to get back to riding.
You good? Yeah. Okay.
Hold up. Trying to put the log on.
I'm telling Paul you have to earn a little respect for what the hell is this?
They're talking about Frankie. Every time he sits up, he's looking behind.
Frank is putting his hands up.
It's like
Here I am! In the rain!
It was out in that neighborhood when we were warming up. He's doing all of this hands-free. I thought that Peter Sagan going across the first.
said he was copying Peter Sagan's victory salute on the
Say,
wet
Frankie,
road. I
man.
told him, you hit this road,
Respect the
you
road,
hit
my
the
brother.
ground, you know, it's not going to be funny. So we're done messing around. We get back to riding here. So we're rolling now. There's a long climb coming up.
Come on, buddy.
And that's the main reason we come here. The first climb at the entrance is steep, but it's much shorter. The one that we're going to do is a nice long climb.
Come on, my brother. Let's
A
go.
little over a kilometer, I think. Somewhere.
I saw that, man. I was like, this guy has no fear. Frankie
That's what
has
Frankie
no
was
fear.
doing, and it was wet, windy, rainy road. I told him, I said, if you hit this ground, it's not going to be funny. Every time he turn around, that bike twitches a little bit. I'm like, so I said, quit messing around, man. Go ride.
I respect you for that, my brother. I'm going to hold on to my dear life.
I'll practice.
I respect the wet road. Doesn't take much. Whoop! Yeah. Yeah.
I drift a little back here to chat with Paul. There is a three-way stop sign, maybe
I feel
about
fine
a
with the
half a
jacket on.
kilometer from here.
Because I run cold, man.
Frankie, you gonna have to get some mudguard for that bike, man. Because you know what? It's supposed to rain next Saturday again. According to the weather right now.
I'm messing with Frank. It's
You
gonna
guys
rain. It's
want
supposed
the
to rain
rain,
next
man.
Saturday. The current forecast.
I actually like the rain.
The guys from California brought the
Well,
rain,
then you
and
guys
it
said
doesn't
they're gonna
rain
be
there
here
much.
next weekend too, man.
So right about here, we
Said they're gonna be here next weekend. Yeah, man.
go through this three-way stop sign.
Watch out,
I
Sarah.
think Hugo takes off. And this area here is unusual in that this is a climb. You feel it more than you see it. Once you get through this curve, so Hugo takes off there. I just keep my gear rolling because I know what's coming. Then Jose sprints. And this is what he likes to do when we go like Flint Ridge Hills. He'll power the gear, but then he goes right there and then he sits up. And the thing is that this is a climb here. It says 0, but I think it's like point something, and shortly it's gonna start registering. Because we're going up, it's a drag. So I ride up to him and I tell him, I said, that's the climb. See that curve? I point that out to him. I basically let him know. And then every time the road goes up, he goes full gas. So I decide, okay, let's really go full gas. I get the Colnago moving. That's about 80%, something like that. I'm not going all out. But I'm going hard enough. So in this situation, Frankie and Hugo will be considered to be the group, the main pack. And we're playing around up front here. That's pretty much how you look at it. So Hugo started it. And Jose went, I went, and now Hugo doesn't want to have anything to do with it. So at this point, yeah, the power's off. We come down here, and there are a couple of dogs in the house on the left. A couple of dogs that come out, and all I do is I yell at the dog to freeze them to get their attention.
Hey!
Right about here.
Step back! Step back! Behave!
They don't show up too well. But that's what you do. If a dog is running towards you from the side of the road, you don't want him to get in your path. So you want to yell at them because it freezes them. It gives you that chance to get past them. You want them behind you. You don't want them cutting across. Dogs cause a lot of wrecks when they run in the pack and so forth. And so on. But those dogs, they come after the bike, so I guess the sound.
That's what happened.
The chain or whatever they chase. So right here, we're turning around. I tell Jose to be careful because that road is very slick because they have little raised pebbles in there. I slow down. You can see me behind him, and then he crashes.
You all right?
And I had to go straight because I tried to hit my brakes because he was in my path, and my back tire started fishtailing. So I just went straight into the grass. By the time Paul turns around, I've already gotten his bike off the road, and I told him to get his shades because that car was coming. And the guy who lives in the cul-de-sac came by to ask if everybody was okay. So he was fine. His jacket had a little bit of a tear.
Yeah, something's rubbing.
His brakes are rubbing because
It's these things.
the hoods are
The
bent.
rocks are raised.
Yeah.
So they have little pebbles in the road that are raised, so your tires bounce. So they're very smooth, and it's not perfectly smooth, that particular corner. And he just carried a little bit of speed, you know, but he had a good line and everything. I mean, it looked like a pretty good turn. But I slowed way down because that road, that particular strip there, they put those rocks in there to make the road last. And it's
Frankie, you
just...
see what we were talking about?
So I
man?
straightened his hoods. I blame Frankie for all the horseplay in the rain. He doesn't respect the wet.
We're going to blame Frankie. I hope you got it on video. Oh, yeah, it's on video. But you know what?
You all right, man?
Yeah, he was fine. You know, when you fall, your hip hits the road. So that little your hip socket on the side there, sometimes it gets bruised, and it takes several months for that to go away. But the good thing was the road was slippery, so he didn't hit too hard.
It slipped. Nah, because I went wide.
He was fine. It's these things, man.
Yeah,
Yeah, he looked okay. He just carried a little too much speed because his line was fine. You know. So when he fell, I tried to hit my brakes because he was right in my path, and my tires started slipping out. So I just went straight to the grass.
The minute you said it, that's when it went down.
Yeah, I said it, and then because I know this corner, man, the surface of this road. I
told him be careful as we approach the corner.
Not even. You see that?
Yeah.
Just like the bricks. So I was talking about the bricks last week. They're not even.
Little granite stones in them.
You're good.
And they're above the asphalt.
Like this again. Here,
So they're bouncing.
Get it warm up,
Yeah, he's turning. No, he's good.
So I straightened up his hoods for
The thing
him.
was, he slowed down.
Brakes are
He took a
fine.
wide turn.
Yeah.
He did everything
He got a
right.
little bit of a tear on his right sleeve of the jacket.
Tires.
So the jacket's safe.
Well, I don't think, it could be the compound is harder.
Glad it was okay.
I was looking at that video about building confidence, like when you fall, you're like, yeah. Like that, like for him, probably like a couple falls, you don't face it, Yep.
I bought my tires. They said they don't slip when it's wet.
Yeah.
That's why I ride so hard.
Frankie, you crazy, man. Yeah. Okay. Yeah,
Let's see
man.
if it's less by the time we get the ribbon chapter.
Okay. All right.
This really high. Look at the tear on his jacket.
Yeah.
The hip when you fall.
Man, that was a hard one, man.
Yeah, well, he slipped. He did everything right. I told him to be careful. He was careful. Yeah, and that's why you just let the fall happen, man. Don't fight it. Yeah, that's cool. Yeah, exactly. It happens, man. You worry about crashing, don't ride your bike. In fact, don't even leave your house if you worry about falling. Might as well just stay under the bed. You know, too busy living to worry about crap like that. Go live. Car left. Stopping, car left. Car, truck, stop. Watch the lift there. Yeah, this is where we joined them. This is where we joined them.
We're explaining to
Raymond
Jose.
Chapel Road.
This is where we joined those cyclists that day on the other
Jose from LA.
We came up on.
And you go back there. There you go, my brother. I want to take over your. I don't know how you got. I gotta learn how to turn that thing like you do, man. I'm getting rusty. Oh, this is nice.
Yep.
Look at this. This is a day of days. Where's Frankie? Come on here, Frankie.
Frankie doesn't like climbing. This road is a drag. It's a grade. Yeah, I took the removal out of my rear pocket, and I didn't pull that jacket all the way down. 'Cause you got to pull it up to get it out of the pocket. So, but anyway, we're rolling north. This is Raven Chapel Road. Got a couple of nice climbs on it, and then a rolling area after we get through the first 2 climbs. So it's an interesting route. Paul and Frankie still chat back there. I rolled up to those guys. It's a little drier here. The rain has slowed down. We had sections where we went through a lot of rain. That's why I put my jacket back on. And so this road is a grade. It's a little less than 1% now, so it's not showing up, but you feel it because we're going into the wind and on this false flat, and then we're gonna have to crest 2 climbs. So a lot of time Frankie stays at the back because he wants to be on his aero bars, and that's the best spot for it unless you're on the front. So he's back there on his aero bars probably, but I'm on the tops because we're climbing. I want to keep my chest open, get more oxygen in my lungs. Switch to the hoods here. So the tops and the hoods I use most of the time, and I only use the drops if I'm sprinting or in close quarters with a lot of other riders, because you have more control. Close quarters and still going pretty fast. It gives you the most control. So right here I'm on the hoods. Simon Moses had put a comment on the site. He said he noticed he's seeing me not ride the hoods much. I only ride the hoods when I'm trying to cut down the wind resistance, or I'm chasing somebody, when I'm trying to eke out some speed. But other than that, if it's rolling terrain, I just stay on the tops. Now when I'm going downhill, I may get in drops for more control. If there's a curve or something, there's more stability, I might get in the drops there. But if it's flat and slightly rolling, I just sit on the tops because I work harder there. And most times when I'm riding, I want to work as hard as possible. I only try to take care of aerodynamic benefits when I'm in a group or chasing somebody, or when speed matters. Because when I'm training, I don't care about the speed. I just want to do the work. You can hear the wind. I actually welcome the wind because when I put that rain jacket on, I ended up unzipping the front because it actually affected the breathability of my other garments. It's not a very, very breathable top, but it does keep the water off of you. I don't know how to do it. It's such a lightweight fabric, and it's got the arm. You can see under the arm, it's got vents. That's why they use a different material there. So it's not too bad. For the price point, I think I paid about 50 bucks. In fact, Timo has it on sale for 39. So the price point is a good piece of kit. It did its job. I never got wet. I welcomed the rain on my head because I took the cap off. It actually felt good to have the rain on my head because we're at 14C. It's fairly warm. It's actually raining here. It's light rain. And Jose's been sitting at the front here pulling. So that was kind of good to see because, you know, he's been pulling and helping the group along. That was cool. And Hugo is on his wheel. Jose trains with power, so I think he has his numbers that he sets his targets on and just rides to that. He showed us his power meter. He has the look keel power pedals. So even though Paul says car back, at this point, it wasn't safe for any car to come and pass in our lane. So I just stayed where I was because we're coming to an intersection. It's a double yellow line. They needed to wait. So after this intersection, there's a hill coming up. I think this is where Jose rolls off the front. He's still there. But shortly, that's the climb. When we get to that climb, he'll roll off the front and Hugo will take over. That's the guy that was behind us. So that's how he needed to pass us anyway. I don't mind giving them room in my lane if it's just me or one or two riders in this room. But right now, it's not a busy road. He can easily say. I think this is where Jose pulls off, and then Hugo takes over. Now, this is what I was talking about earlier. Hugo takes over and starts to force the pace. So I decide to just go. And I just kicked it up a couple of notches, not too hard. I'm just keeping a reasonable rhythm, but it's a little harder than Hugo wanted to do on this climb. See, Paul is right next to me because that wind is coming from in our face and on our right. And when we're going hard, that's where you want to be. So now the three of us once again are playing up the front. The main pack is behind. Since Hugo did not keep the pace steady, I figured he wanted to play. So I stepped it up a notch. Jose had pulled for a long time, then Hugo changed the pace. Now Jose is fit enough to be able to go with this change in pace, and Hugo, who changed the pace, could not go. That's the thing I'm talking about. You've got to know what you're doing. You got to think about what you're doing. Don't start something you can't finish. Head and legs. Don't just ride. Think about what you're doing. So if we had kept this pace at this effort, the three of us would have just gone away, period. End of story. But because our group, it might as well be like a no drop rule per se. You know, in a group that does not have no drop, we would have been gone. They wouldn't see us again. So you got to be careful when you're riding with groups. This is just a teaching moment for everybody watching. Don't start messing around with a group and trying to show them up or do stuff, because you don't know who's there and what they're capable of. And if it's not a no drop group and you start something that you can't finish, you will be riding alone. so you know, when we got through that climb, we backed off the power. It gave Hugo a chance to get back. You can see Frankie getting back. Now just watch. I will show you what Frankie does again. And Paul says, I'm crazy. I think Frankie is crazy. So we'll show you a scene a little bit. So because we go and we back off, people are able to come back. But not every group does what we do. So when you're out there, save your energy, especially if you're riding with a group that is not a no-drop group. Because you do the wrong thing and overexert yourself and go beyond your capabilities, you will have problems. So watch. Frankie had a problem on that hill. Now we finished the hill, we backed off, waited for him. He comes and goes off the front. So if you've got that much energy to do this, why didn't you stay on our wheel on the climb? And I've talked to him about that. So right here he goes, I decide I'm just going to kick up my cadence a little bit. I didn't shift. And I just rolled up to him. Then Jose comes on the left. So I thought he was going to go. So you will see shortly I moved. After this curve, I moved left because Jose is looking back here. So I think he turned off the power. But I didn't see that during the time I was there. So when he came on the left, I moved left. to pick up the faster wheel. But then he turned off the power. Then Hugo was on my right, so I just stayed there. And I just started to watch and said, okay, let's see what's going on here. And then shortly after that, I think they passed Frankie, and then I let them know that there's a turn coming up on the left, so they would be aware. I did not want them to overshoot that turn. So here's where they start to go, and I let them know. Right there, he looks back. I let him know there's a left turn coming up. So now Frankie started this. Now watch him. He started to drift back again. There's the gap opening up. This is another teaching moment. He's going to go left. There's a car coming. Paul says car back. I put my arm out because that car was going to pass, and I let the car know we were turning, and I positioned myself to where the car knew. That's when we told them it was okay. So we take this turn. At this point, Frankie's gapped. So here it is. Every time the pace picks up, he's having challenges, but then when we back off the power, he accelerates. And then when we go with his acceleration, he gets dropped again. That's what I can't get my mind around, my head around. It's like, okay, so I use that to just show you guys, when you're riding with a group, don't spend energy you cannot afford. So at this point, I roll up to Jose. We mentioned to him that Frankie's back, but at this point, we got a rhythm going. These guys don't want to slow down. That's the point I made earlier. The group, you're affecting the group when you do that. So it's like, okay, Jose continues to ride, and I'm like, good for you. And then, you know, we back off just a little bit, but Frankie does not make a lot of progress to get to us. And you see, after a while, Jose takes off because he continues to ride. He wants to ride. So Paul and I kind of soft pedal a little bit, and I think Hugo stays with us. But then after a while, we just go ahead and ride anyway. We figure it as an intersection. Yeah, this is where I back off to talk to Paul about it. We check on Frankie. But if Frankie had not done that acceleration, he could have been riding with us right here. So Jose keeps riding. I'm like, in my mind, I'm like, kudos to you. Keep riding. Because enough already. We're not going to keep waiting because you're making poor decisions. You want to ride with us, you got to use your head. So Jose is kind of soft pedaling right here, but after a little while, he just keeps riding. So you have to save your energy to use it when it counts. There's no point in you going off the front when the group is taking it easy. So, and you can see, Frankie's way back there. So Jose keeps riding. I have been soft pedaling, hoping he'd catch up, but he's not making a lot of progress. Because this area here is up and down. You can see it says 1%. We're climbing. So the thing is, he's been out here. So the point I'm making is, if you know there are climbs coming, don't go kill yourself on the downhill when the group is taking it easy to wait for you. So Jose keeps riding. I'm like, fine. I'm just here rolling through these hills. So we're just riding. And then at the end of this route, this section here, we get to an intersection on the main highway, which allows Frankie to catch back up. Because this right here, we're the main pack, so we're backing off the pace. But I'm not gonna expect Jose to do that. Let him ride the climbs. That's why we brought him out here, to ride these climbs. We didn't bring him out here to wait for anyone. So when you ride with a group, save your energy to stay with the group. Because what Jose is doing up there, a lot of groups would be there. And even though we're here waiting on Frankie, there will be nobody here waiting on Frankie. And he will end up riding alone because the group will be gone. So don't do that at your group rides, especially if the group is not a no-drop group. But just because the group is a no drop group does not mean you should make decisions that cause them to slow down. I cannot emphasize that enough, because after a while people get tired of that. So Jose is enjoying this route, and that's why we brought him out here, to ride this. So we're looking back for him the whole time, and that's my point. All he had to do was save his energy and use every ounce of energy to stay with the group. I mean, what's the point otherwise? So your goal, when I was racing, my coach told me, go on a training ride with these 1, 2, 3 pro 1, 2. I used to train with guys above my level to help me improve, and he would tell me, you go with these guys, your goal is to finish with them. I didn't taste the win 1 ounce until after many months of riding with those pro 1, 2, 3 guys, because these guys were no business. They didn't wait for anybody unless you had a mechanical. Yeah, they fixed that to go. They're not waiting for you. They got a limited amount of time to ride, and they're out there to get a workout. So these guys, even amongst them, the top guys, there were days when they weren't feeling too good, they didn't pull, and they would let the other guys know, I'm not pulling today. And the people who felt good, they would stay at the front and they would rotate. And the rest of the guys would keep their nose out of the wind and stay close to not slow the group down. Because we're out here to ride. You can see Jose way up there. Why should we hold him back? So we brought him out here to have fun. He's out here experiencing the ride. Hugo is with us because he's taking a break. He's riding with us. At this point, later in the ride, he ends up riding up ahead. You know, so people do what they want to do. But, you know, I cannot stress enough, when you get with a group, find out what they're doing, have a goal. If you can't hang with a group, don't try to do heroics, because what's the point of you going off the front while the group is waiting for you? You come around and then they go and then you get dropped, because that's what happened here. So it's like, don't do that. Don't make those kind of moves. You know, you got to go back to the drawing board. Your first goal should be, I need to be able to finish with these guys without getting dropped once. And once that starts to happen consistently, then you start taking pulls. Then you start going off the front.
I get that too, man.
So until you can ride with the group without getting dropped, keep your butt in the draft. Quit messing around.
Back up, Paul. There you go.
So Frankie comes up here, he says, I had a breathing problem. I didn't say anything. You had a breathing problem because you went beyond your capabilities. He had a breathing problem. He says that all the time. So Hugo takes off here, and I think Paul shortly comes around Frankie to follow Hugo. This road had more water and mud, this highway. There's a lot of trucks that carry dirt out here, and when it's dry, you know, it gets on the side of the road. So it was messier. But Paul goes around Frankie. I'm behind Paul, and we roll up. We don't get super close, because once Paul got closer, he had to slow down. I think we pass Hugo here and go up to Jose. There's Jose up there. Jose had gotten on the highway before we did, because there were cars and the timing was such that he could turn. We had to wait. So he's just kind of soft pedaling. And we roll up to him, but we can't really follow close because of the spray. So once Paul got closer, he literally had to hit the brakes. You can see the dirt on the side of the road here. So it ends up, you know, with the dirt in the water, it was just, you know, it gets in your eyes, and we're not wearing our glasses because of the mist, so it just gets to be a mess. That's why a lot of the clubs I heard in the UK don't allow people to ride without mud guards when it's wet, because, you know, you spray everybody else. And it's just a reasonable investment if you're going to ride in the rain. You know, and none of these guys has shoe covers. I can understand these guys are from California because it doesn't rain there that much, and they're traveling here, so there's no way they could have known what the weather would do. But you can see Paul and I are prepared. I mean, there's a phrase from a movie called, I think it's Under Siege 2 Dark Territory, called "Chance favors the prepared mind." The villain used it. I always kind of pull for the villain in these movies. My wife always teases me. I don't know why. I always want the villain to win. Because the movies just seem to be stacked against the villains. And so I like that phrase, "Chance favors the prepared mind." You know? And I use that a lot with my girls. Like, you have to plan, you know, and be ready so you can adapt and overcome. That's from Heartbreak Ridge with Clint Eastwood. I'm reminiscing here. Anyway, so we stay a little behind Jose's spray, and we just ride. You know, we're just kind of riding here. Get off this highway because there's a real pretty climb that comes up shortly down the road. So Paul's talking about without the mud guards, all the spray. The camera doesn't pick it up, but there's a lot. So we can see I'm backing off even more. Because when it blows, it doesn't just come straight back. Because it's windy, when it blows, it swirls around. So it's everywhere. And then you got dirt in there. It's not just water being thrown up. It's a nice highway. This is a heavily ridden route by cyclists. This is Highway FM 2854 in Montgomery County. A lot of cyclists, a lot of triathletes, top level guys ride out here because there's a loop from the Woodlands where you can do 100 miles and not be too far out, but lots of serious climbs. And I was telling Paul one day we might want to go out there, maybe drive out here partially. There's a hill climb called Anderson, and it's like a wall. I mean, it is just, it's hard, you know, more than anything we've ridden out here. There's some serious climbing north of where we are. We're headed south right now. You can see the spray from that truck that just went by. Got on the camera. There's a lot of mist. It ended up being just such a great day to be on the bike. I know it may seem odd because it's raining and everything, but we've got the mud guards, we've got our shoe covers, rain jacket. I never felt wet or cold. My gloves got a little wet. It's a mild morning. I was not cold. I wrung it out when we stopped a few times. That was about it, because those gloves, I was testing the protein gloves. They're not designed for rain. They're designed to keep your hands warm in mild weather, reasonably mild weather. So they did their job. And, you know, I like that you can use it with your computer without taking it out. So I'm letting Jose know there's a right turn at the stop, but he doesn't hear me. He's about 2 car lengths or so ahead of me. He doesn't hear me. I thought he did. So we continue. There's a slight drag here. That's the stop. That's the right turn there. He's gonna miss it. I'm gonna call out to him again, and he'll do a U-turn. I have to basically yell. I already have a booming voice, but it's that wind. So I turn right. Yeah, I told him we're staying out of the spray. That's why we're so far behind. But we're not. We're 2 car lanes. The camera has a wide angle, so it makes us. And then Raya Hugo says this is pretty.
It's beautiful. Yeah.
So Hugo likes this. This is a nice climb. You turn it smooth. You know, so that's why we brought these guys out here to enjoy the road. And so Jose's climbing. I think at this point we cease the filming after we get over this climb.
because the rain's picking up. And then the other stretches, they're not as beautiful. So I suggested to Paul, let's cease the filming until we get into the woodlands. So we're just gonna be on the highway. So right here, we're back in the woodlands, and you can see it's about 4.5 hours on the clock. I kept that rain jacket on because it just rained. And once we got to the woodlands, the rain had abated. And I think it's somewhere here I suggested Paul to show you guys the difference between when you have mudguards and when you don't. So we've all been riding the same amount of hours. I had Paul come up. I think this is here that I told him. I said, get a shot of Hugo here. These guys came from California and brought the rain, and it doesn't rain there much. I think he said they're going to be here another week on business, so they might join us next Saturday as well. That's cool. So yeah, this is where I told Paul, I said, go get a shot of Hugo. Look at Hugo's jersey. Look at the pocket. You will just see the black dirt sitting there. You see that? And now, you can't see it on the shorts, but when you wash those shorts, the water will be black. There's all that stuff from the road. It gets soaked into your clothing. Then I told him, I said, film me. And look, I'm wearing pink. I got a white rain jacket. Look at that. $35 or $50 mudguards. That's the difference. Once you set it up, it's 15 to 30 seconds to put both of them on. So there's really no reason, if you're going to ride in the rain, to not have this minimal protection, basically. And then after almost 5 hours in the rain, my feet were just a little damp. I put my shoes in front of a heater, and boom, they were dry.
I was thinking about the same thing, man.
Paul and I sharing a joke there. We're talking about the current status of the ride and where we are, you know. So we're thinking the same thing. There was a gentleman in the channel that asked about these mudguards, and he said that he asked whether they kept the front really clean. They don't. You get dirt on there because they're not full mudguards. But it's really no big deal. I mean, it doesn't take long to clean. I think the cleanup is a lot easier. I don't have to. I used to spend a lot of time cleaning under the saddle because you got grit under there. Now I don't have to be concerned with that at all. So no, I love this. I mean, we look like we just rode without rain. I wasn't dirty when I got home. Cleaned my shoe covers. Right here, we're going up a hill, and we rolled past Frankie. He'd been up front, and he said, "Here we go again." And I thought he was like ready to go because he said, "Here we go again." But then he didn't turn on the power. So I don't know. Maybe he was just having an off day. So we just ride. We're not going that hard. We're just riding the climb. Hugo's pulling right now, and then after that, Jose will go to the front. So it was a very, very good ride, what I call an epic ride. And I'm glad we were able to share this much with you guys because I was concerned about the remote view's exposure, the gimbal exposure to the rain, since the limit is 10 minutes. I didn't want to risk anything happening to the mechanism. Look at Frankie way back there. He just turned off the power. So that's something he's gonna have to work on. You gotta work when it's necessary. Save all your energy for these moments. Stay with us, because we're not going that hard.
So Jose takes over the pole from Hugo, and I tapped my hip to let Paul know to come on because Jose took over and he accelerated down this descent. He just wanted to enjoy it. And we get to the stop sign, it's a three-way, it's clear. We had to wait for that car a little bit. So, but then he turned off the power. So we're just rolling again. And that's the thing, you know, it's okay for people to do whatever they want. You know, all the stuff I've been talking about is just about you learning what that particular group's etiquette is. Learn the rules. I talked about it in the other videos. Learn what they do and then try to become a part of what they do. But if you want to do something different or whatever, because so for example, you saw Jose accelerate. Okay, if I had nothing left, I wouldn't have been able to come up to him. So your goal when you hook up with a group is expect the unexpected and always save something. Always. That's the best approach. It's the same thing when when you're racing. For those of you who are into racing, you can't expend all your energy before the finish line or before the place where you plan to make your attack. It's the same thing. Always keep a little something. Keep a little some we call it. So when you get to the front, don't become a hero. Take a pull, get off. It's a pull. It's not a race to the finish line. Take a pull. If you're planning on testing yourself or whatever, then that's your plan. You go. You can do what you got to do. But know that if you give it your all and there are people riding with you that got more, you might end up riding alone. So always keep that when I say head and legs. That's what I mean. So because we always keep a little something, that's why I made the comments in our other rides. I said, I'm sitting there at 32 kilometers an hour because that's a good pace to allow the other guys to be able to hang. So I stay there longer because that gives me a workout instead of me going 40K and breaking up the group. I talked about that. But when you get in a group, know what you can do. And even if it's easy, find out what that group does first before you start doing stuff. Otherwise, you won't be very popular. Find out what the purpose of the group. Remember, there was a guy from one of our legends said that the ride was easy, and then the next day he got dropped because somebody showed up that went faster. You know, so most of the groups out there, their character varies depending on who's there. So we don't expect our guests to do exactly what we do. All we're doing is when they decide to go, we go ahead and we sit in that draft. We take it easy so that when they're done, we'll just keep going like we normally do. That's the key. And we might decide to play with them. We might decide to go even harder than they went when they're done. That's what makes it interesting. And that's what you have to do. Anybody you ride with, figure out what's going on first. And make sure what you're doing will not cause problems for you or the group. Because don't expect the group to wait for you because you killed yourself in that last pull. And you're the new guy. They're going to be like, oh, he should have known. You know? So yeah, so it's fun. It's great having these guys here. I'm just letting that car know that we're turning. See, he was ready to go in the other lane, but I stuck my arm out and he came behind us. That's why you have to signal. So that was great. Paul got a good shot there. That was great to see that. Your signals are important. You got to let the other road users know what you're doing. We get annoyed in Houston driving cars. A lot of people in this city don't signal in their cars. And I'm like, how am I supposed to know what you're doing? All the cars come with signals. They act like it's an ornament. They're not supposed to use it. There are some cities where they will pull you over and get you a ticket for not signaling. And in other countries, they call it trafficking. You know, you're supposed to let, it's not just for other cars. Pedestrians are crossing them. You need to let them know you're turning. The indicators are important. In this city here, man, please. They don't want you to know. And then another reason is a lot of people on the roads, if you let them know you signal, they speed up to block your car. They don't want you to get in.
So we got all kinds of stuff going on here. We got our own issues here. So, the 4th largest city in these United States. Got a bunch of wackos living here, including myself. I got my own issues. But anyway, back to cycling. So I'm at the front, and we're on the downside of this ride. I think we've got about probably a half hour left. The 447 you see, I think, is the total duration. I don't believe it's actual riding.
Oh yeah.
See, they're smiling back there. People are having fun. That's what it's about. That's why we don't restrict people. Even though it's a no drop ride, if you come, you want to go hard. If Paul's feeling good, he'll go with you. If I'm feeling good, I'll go with you. If not, we'll let you ride off the front. We'll ride, get back, whatever. So everybody has fun. That's what it's about. The stuff I've been talking about throughout the ride is to teach. This channel has a lot of different levels of riders. Some very experienced, some new, some, you know, in between, whatever. And this is just to either reinforce or inform about different things, because there's no one rule for everything. That's why it's important that when you hook up with a group, find out what they're doing, because we know you're supposed to go with your own plan. So if you want to do intervals with a group, then sit at the front longer, or go with that guy who's with the group that's going and use that for as your interval. You know, after you've gotten to know what the dynamics of the group are. You know, so check them out first before you start doing stuff, and try to fit in, because that's what makes a group. You know, when these pros go like Peter Sagan, when they have a fundraising ride, he doesn't go there to race anybody. People go there to ride with him so they can have a conversation. They're in his company and they're just riding tranquilo. They're just riding, you know. He does enough racing. He doesn't need to race non-racers or whatever, or amateurs or whatever. So that's the way you have to think about it. If you're hooking up with a group for a workout, there are groups that are designed for hard riding, fast riding. That's great. You do that. Or if you're with a group that says, we just ride, we just do whatever, kind of like our group, then sit at the front longer. I'll give you a workout. And that's why, if you notice, when these guys are going, our guests, we just sit on their wheel. I mean, for me, it's not that hard, but I mean, if anybody else in the group that happened to be here that day, we got other riders, that's the way you want to treat it. Somebody's going faster than you'd like. If you can stay on their wheel, you stay on their wheel. If you can't, you let them go and you keep riding your pace. So then when they're done with their interval, you guys will roll back up to them. And that's why I made the example of, that's the mean Peloton we're playing off the front. It's important. I don't like to give things in structured manner, because the structure varies. Every group is unique. It's like when you're racing, every race is different. You can go to a race thinking, I'm going to break away at this point, or I'm going to do this. And then the dynamics of the race will dictate what you're able to do or what you're allowed to do. It's always different. You can do the same race every time, and it'd be different depending on who's there or what happens. You get an early breakaway and you end up chasing for hours. Then what? What's left? You know, that's what will determine who wins. So every time those guys get out there, every time you go, it's different. Every group ride is different. And we have groups in the area. There's a Woodland Cycling Club. They're literally put on their site, this ride is for, that's Jose giving a thumbs up. He's showing his glove tore when he fell. There's a group in the Woodlands that says this ride is designed for road cycling competition. The pace is determined by who shows up and what time of the year it is. The Woodland Cycling Club literally has that on their group ride page. And that is so true. So at this point in the ride, you know, I have a diesel engine. I've always had a diesel engine. The longer I ride, the better I seem to go.
So at this point in the ride, I'm just bringing the boys in. And once we get through a couple of the first hills after the light coming up, I let Jose come to the front because he likes to go up those hills. So I just wave him to the front so we can just sit on him and do whatever pace he wants. So everybody gets their workout. We get to this light here, and what I'm thinking is that we'll go through the first couple of climbs, see what the boys want to do, let whoever wants to come to the front, and most of the time it's Jose that comes through because Paul's running the camera. He sits back to get the view. He seems to be having fun. See the guys. So this has been good. It's a very good ride. I'm glad the guys are here. Ride with us. I'm looking back, making sure everybody gets through. It's out of habit. Make sure everybody got your intersection okay. I ended up using only 2 500-milliliter bottles because it was such a mild day. And then when I walk out the door, I basically drink electrolytes before I step out the door. So I leave already topped off. And so on the bike, on a day like this, I did not need to add anything. So when we stopped, I didn't need to add any fluids to my bottles. So right here, I'm just keeping my cadence up. This is where we come. I think it's like a 4% climb, something like that. The first little one that bites. I keep the gears reasonable. I think about 53, 23, something like that. Because I got a 25 on the back. I think I stay in the 23 and just keep the cadence rolling. Just keep the pressure the same. So even if somebody is going to attack, you want to make sure that the gear you're in, you can handle it to the point where if you want to go with them, you can just rev it up a little more. And then you can shift if you need to a harder gear, if that calls for it. We get over that climb, we go downhill. I think after here, I'm not sure when I wave. Whoever's behind me, I don't know who's behind me, but I just wave them forward. I think it ends up being Jose. You can see my rain jacket. It's a little puffed up, wind's getting in there because I unzipped the front to regulate my temperature. Look at the wind whipping this thing. I mean, we had a lot of wind and rain, and that's why we got sprayed from the cars. So this second climb is not that much. It says 1%. Yeah, this is where I wave whoever's back. I say, come on. So Jose goes to the front, so I pick up his wheel. Right there. He can just take us in. Do the honors. Since you brought the rain, you can take us home. So a lot of the stuff that I suggest on this ride, they're just from my reading experience and whatever. It may not apply in every situation, so I give a lot of different variations. Take what works for you in whatever group you hook up with. You see, I'm staying to the left so that the wind can slow me down. So when you're in somebody's draft, you roll faster. So I stay to the left because this is kind of slightly leveled down, and now we're going up a climb here. I didn't shift, I'm in the same gear. Because what Jose is doing here is when we go down the hill, I noticed he wasn't pedaling. So if he's not pedaling, I didn't bother shifting to harder gears. When I ride these rollers, I ride the downhills, so I end up shifting up. But you can see he's just coasting, so I just go to the left here. so the wind can slow me down. And it ends up bringing me alongside him somewhat. And now he's pedaling. He's pedaling on the uphill, and he's coasting on the downhill. That's what he's doing at this moment. So we're climbing almost at 17 to 18 miles an hour up these climbs. They're anywhere from 2% to 4%. So this climb just ends right here with crest, and I think he coasts again. I might end up moving over. Every time he stops pedaling, I would move over so the wind can slow me down. You can see my cadence is slow. Now, yeah, he's coasting. So as I get closer to him, I move a little to the left. That's what you want to do, even on the flats. Getting sucked into the rider, move to the left. Don't use your brakes unless absolutely necessary. And he's in a tuck. It's a slight descent. I think it says -0. Somebody's on that. That's Frankie. So Frankie's probably doing the same thing so the wind can slow him down. And now we're going up another climb. So when I ride these rollers solo, I don't coast. I just ride them. I shift and I just ride up or down, just to keep my legs working. You can hear that wind. The camera's angle's a little low. I think it's because of how Paul's holding it. Sometimes the gimbal will drop the angle. I had mentioned to him to watch the angle because I noticed it would do that from time to time. See the gear I'm in. I'm all the way up in the back on the cluster. I'm in a 23, something like that. Yeah, 23. I wanted to keep my cadence up above 85. So this was what we did on Saturday. I hope you guys got a chance, guys and girls got a chance to go out there. If you didn't, get on your trainer, get outside, walk around, move your body. Get those muscles moving. As you can see, the weather does not stop us. We will only not ride if it's unsafe. If it's lightning and thundering, we won't. In fact, at the end of the ride, after the camera was off, we passed the golf course and there were golfers golfing in the rain. I don't see that very often. Those boys wanted to get out. It's been raining every weekend. They're like, forget this. We're hitting the links. So I gave them thumbs up. I was like, that's what I'm talking about. And they waved back as we went by. So get out there, get your miles in. Don't let anything stop you.